Hello again, everybody. It's Michael with your latest supply and demand market report looking at the indices. I hope you've all been well. Before we get started, please remember that this is purely for educational purposes only and not a recommendation for you to base any of your trading decisions on. Okay, so with that, we'll start with the Russell 2000. So as we talked about last week, the Russell had a move last week and it came into this supply zone on the weekly chart, the chart on your left, and it had an initial reaction. It made a higher high this week into that level and was pushed back. I explained last week that I wasn't keen on that level because of its location. It's located within a bigger range, so which is not really doesn't really allow for a big enough profit margin for the way that I trade, but I know supply and demand traders will be looking at that as well and trying to profit from that opportunity for short-term, really short-term trades, which is absolutely fine. And we're seeing on the daily here, as we look a bit closer and zoom in on the daily, we are breaking below, or we had broken below that low on Thursday and tried to go for the highs again on Friday with not much movement between the levels there. So it's hard to know. It's not decided. We are sitting into supply, but again, as I explained, not the greatest location. So nothing to do right now. We're just watching and observing. We do know for sure that there are buyers at this area below. Okay, so buyers have come in. Can the sellers knock them back? This market is still fighting it out. And looking at the Nikkei, the Nikkei is probably the strongest stock index in the world, and it continues to rocket high. You can see this week just gone how strong that was, and it's holding near the highs as well, as you can see on the daily. And we've got weekly demand, a bit sloppy in its formation, but it's just gone so parabolic. There are obviously other levels below, but before we get to those, we have to go through the higher levels. This market will pull back, so I would encourage you not to be too worried about it. This zone is not fully formed yet also, by the way, another point, because all we've had is the move out. We haven't seen what's going to happen next. We still need to make sure that we are trading well away from this level before we then look to take the pullback. For now, in fact, I'm just going to remove that drawing of the zone so as not to confuse anyone. It's not yet fully formed yet, so it doesn't deserve to be marked off. I'll correct this one. Okay, there we go. That's the Nikkei on the watch list. Australia had a good week. It did take out, the highs of the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks even. But again, nothing is set up. It's still in its box. It needs to make a decision, and it will eventually, one way or the other, where it wants to go. Okay, so nothing really to do in this time frame. On smaller time frames, there are definitely opportunities if you're trading on smaller time frames, but for the weekly, daily view, nothing to do right now. And looking at the UK, also nothing to do right now. It's caught within its own box as well, with the highs there and the lows there. I did take a trade on a smaller time frame on this level, which worked out nicely. I'll show you that on the 4-hour. It was for a quick, I think it was about 3 or 4 to 1. That was shorting that level there, so that worked. Targets were, ultimate targets were at that low, and that's played out as we wanted it to done, and we were out, and now it's gone through that level and gone to new high. So that's what I mean by, if you're trading the weekly, daily, you might not have anything to do, but if you go to smaller time frames, there might be opportunities. We are seeing that on the weekly, traders are trying to hold demand below. They have taken out supply on the daily chart, and now it's trying to gain traction to the upside. It's not doing a very good job of it though, because since we took out that supply, you'll notice we haven't had a close above that supply zone. That's important. It's these little nuances that, you know, is useful to note. It's just the buyers are, they're trying for sure, but they're also really struggling. The sellers tried to gain control again, but the buyers rejected it. So they're just duking it out now. There's no direction here per se. Even though you have higher highs, higher lows, you've removed one supply zone. We can definitely, according to the methodology, say that the momentum is to the upside, the trend is to the upside on the daily chart, that is. But all of that is happening in the context of a bigger picture range. Very useful information. Okay, so nothing to do for now on this time frame. The NASDAQ, again, as I pointed out to you all last week, that this was not a level that I was going to trade. It was a target level for longs, but not one to initiate shorts at, and that's what's panned out. It has resulted in the creation of a rally, base rally, and again, I'm not going to draw it in because that level hasn't finished forming and I don't want to confuse anybody. So we are heading towards the next level. Now, a note of caution, I know these are just rapid fire videos, but like I just did in the energies video, I'm going to spend 10 seconds to explain something to you so that you don't repeat the same mistakes that I made when I was starting out. As supply and demand traders, we're told to start with current price and to go up and left, and we're going to find supply. It is a dangerous thing to be the one trying to go short in a market that has picked a direction. You already saw the supply and demand trader who tried it there failed. Even the one who tried this ugly zone failed, because prices, although they reacted, they didn't make it to a new low. So if you were not out of the trade, you got stopped out. Then the supply and demand trader who went and said, right, okay, those two didn't work, but that one is really, really good. It's high, gonna short it. This week was also stopped out. And you can see on the daily that, as I pointed out, even these little, you know, not high quality demand zones are holding. Why? Because the buying pressure is so strong. They may not be levels you would trade, but the market is telling you any opportunity to buy is being taken. So you attempting to short, it can be a challenging proposition. So just be mindful of that. This area could end up also being the new demand zone. If we have one more week, by this time next week, it'll be a demand zone, unless a demand zone to consider, unless we have this week an immediate return, in which case it wouldn't meet my criteria. It may meet yours, it may meet those of other supply and demand practitioners, but it wouldn't meet mine. Okay, so I wouldn't take that one. Okay, and finally, the German DAX. That one has also resolved finally to the upside, even though it was an immediate return. Well, actually, was it? It took out this demand zone and went to a lower one. So this demand zone is the one that worked. The immediate return, as often happens, failed, and prices traded below it and it went to the lower one. They're very tight though, very close together. So it may not be that much, but you know, if you're trading it, the person would have gotten stopped out, sadly. So that we have it. Again, if you were looking at the daily and you were trading it, this area I'm hoping would have kept you out of attempting to go short. The fact that you didn't have a much of a distance, no profit margin between those two levels. But if you did, it again would probably have not worked out unless you were really, really quick and quite precise, which you have to be if you're trading against the weekly trend and against the daily trend. Because by the time you removed this daily, this one here, this rally-based drop daily supply, by the time you removed that, that was information to you that all was not well with this daily move, that down move on the daily. Okay. So for now, we have demand being created right here. So that's a potential trading opportunity on the daily chart in the DAX. And with that, 10 minutes. Thank you all very much for watching the video. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and share the videos. If you have any questions or there was another index you wanted us to look at, please put it in the chat below. Speak to you all soon. Take care, everybody.